Misha and welcome back to another painting video. As you can see by the title today, I wanted to do another painting tutorials as you guys asked how I paint Studio Ghibli scenes, and one of the objects that I paint a lot in those scenes are the trees. And if you've watched a lot of my videos, you would know how much I like painting anything concerning nature. So today I want to show some of the tricks I use to paint trees. And this time I will not be using any tape around. It's just gonna be like a study and we're just gonna go through the study together. And this video might be a little bit longer than usual, but some of you guys told me that you don't mind it being too long. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit longer, but I wanna explain the whole process to you guys. So I hope you enjoy that. Alright, so for the first step, it's basically just doing a light sketch of where you want to place everything. And I'm using this picture as a reference where I just want to paint the trees in it. And first of all, you have to put the trunk so where you want it to be. And usually I don't draw the branches because it's gonna get covered by the leaves. So I end up doing it later on with my paintbrush. But for right now, I'm just placing the bigger trunks in front and also lightly sketching where I want to place the leaves at. And finally, I want to go lightly over with my eraser to take off excess graphite so it doesn't mix with the gouache paint. And yeah, we'll go over the painting part. And this time I'm slowing this video a lot more than usual because I want to show you a lot of the colors that I'm using if you have the same palette. But know that you can make a lot of greens with just blue, yellow, and if you want to use black to make it darker, and you can also use white to make it lighter. But for right now, I'm adding different colors to make different hues and saturation of it. So I'm just placing everything here so I don't have to touch the set and get the color all messed up. And for the second step, I'm using a small pointed brush to start painting the trunk because it's pretty small, but different trees have different trunk colors. Some of them are brown, and this one I think is called a birch trees. I think I may be wrong on that, but it basically has like white trunk with like some darker cracks on it, I think. So I'm not using all white because it's not just one color. It has different shades in it, and I could see shades of brown and also a little bit of green. So I try to mix a lot of those colors. And you can notice that I start putting the white colors on the left hand side. This is where I'm imagining the light coming from. So that is one of the main things that you have to think about when you're painting, is think where's light coming from. So that edge or that surface will be lighter than where the light is not touching it. And I know I started mixing a little bit of the green, but then I'll add more of the brown and try to mix the colors and go back and forth until I get something decent. And the third step is to block out the undertone color, or also called the base color. So I usually like starting with a darker base, and right now I'm putting in a darker green, but then I also mix it with some black and brown to create different hues because the trees is not the same color. There's different tones happening in there. So this is where I have a lot of fun. I use a square brush or a rounded brush, anything that you might have, and I just start dabbing it at different spots, but then not make it even, just create different tones while you can. And also looking at the picture, seeing where it's darker in the back, and then block out those colors. And here you don't have to be details. We're not putting like each in separate leaf. We're just putting out the background of it. That's gonna show up as like the shadows, and later we're gonna build it up by bringing in the lighter colors. And then I decided to switch to my smaller pointed paintbrush to add some of the details And it doesn't have to be exact here, which is why I love painting nature, by the way. You can still have a lot of fun, you have a lot of leeway when you're putting in some of the details. And right now I'm just placing some of the shadows under the leaves, and I'm not putting it like at exact spot. I'm at least just putting it roughly where I had designed the whole outline of it, and I'm switching between putting a darker green, which is on the brown side, but also adding some other greens that has more blue in it. And yeah, if I don't make a lot of sense, you can also slow it down and go back to understand what the process looked like. And step 4 is to add details with the lighter colors. So now you have to be conscious of where the light is coming at again. And right now it's not like exact details, so I have like my bigger brush in it, so it's kind of like medium details. So just so that I don't waste too much time between using like a small pointed brush, I usually just touch the tip of my square brush and make it lighter. And the way I'm making it lighter is the same green that I've used, I mix it in yellow and then add that, and later on when I want to make it even more lighter, I start adding white in it. And again, you don't have to be too exact with it, as long as you know where you want to make it lighter. Just use your paintbrush and have fun with it. I did switch back to my smaller brush just to add a little bit more of details to make some of the individual leaves stand out a little bit more. And the painting had the tree looking more on the lighter green side, so using my paintbrush I try to mix a lot of the green with the yellow part of it and touching a bit more of the white in it just to make it lighter. And step 5 is to add the branches for more details, because when you look at a tree, you see some of the branches peeking through, but not all of it. So at this point of my painting, I'm not totally completed with the leaves, so then I switched to adding the branches and putting the shadows in it and making it as detailed as I want it to be. Try to make the branches thin out, and then I switch back to adding the leaves later, so that is the more detailed leaves that will come in front of the branches. And as I mentioned before, step 6 would be adding smaller leaf on top of the branches, but making sure you're not covering all the branches because you still see some of the branches peeking out. And yeah, I wanted to also add a little bit of the grasses in the bottom just to complete this little study. And then we'll move on to another tree study, I would say, but that one will be with a background behind so you guys understand my process when I'm doing an actual painting. When I use paint, I try not to use all of it. I just use how much I need, and then if the paint is still untouched, I like putting it back in the palette so I can use it later so I'm not wasting the paint. So yeah, I just wanted to do that so I could have a clean palette again and go over the process one more time just so you guys can look at it again and understand how I put everything together. And for the second study with the background, I decided to go with this picture. It's from The Cat Returns. I probably told you guys that this was one of the first two Ghibli movies I've watched, and I really like this picture because it had two full trees, so I wanted to show you guys how to paint the trees with the sky behind. So yeah, again, I started with a light sketch and just putting out where the trunks would be, and I'm not putting too much detail in the branches right now because it comes later in the painting. I'm also adding a rough outline where I wanted the leaves to be at. Sometimes I don't do it, I just skip over because I can imagine it. But if you guys have struggled into making the trees look alike, I would suggest having this step in it. And again, I wanted to show you guys how I put the colors on my palette, and I'm showing it because a lot of people commenting how sometimes they messes up the palette because they mix two colors with it. So one way that I avoid it is I kind of imagine what colors will go in the painting and then take that color, place some of it in my palette, and if I need more, I will wash my brush first and then I'll dip some more paint and add it again in the palette. That way I still have a clean paint set, but I can also mix a lot of it on the palette itself. So when you're painting a scene, you have to think what is in the background and what is in the foreground. In the picture that I chose, the sky was in the background, so that's why I'm starting with the sky first, and I'm also adding some clouds. And I'm really speeding this process up because my previous video was how to paint Studio Ghibli clouds, so you can check that out later. And I did mention when you paint clouds, it's easier to leave that section blank, but I was trying to be quick there, so I did use a lot of white to be able to finish it. But one of the thing is, if the white keep mixing with the background, just leave it to dry for a little bit, which is why I moved to painting the trunk first, and then later on I'll go back and add some more white to make it look more fluffy. And same thing as the last painting is I start by painting the tree with the trunk first, so I know where I'm placing it. And again, I'm not putting too much details into painting the branches yet. I do put the first few branches that break out, but I'm not putting all of it because it'll come in later. And while painting the trunk, you have to think again where the light is coming from, because that's why I make the painting stand out, is to know one side. Just choose one side the light comes from and keep that consistent throughout your painting. So yeah, that's why I'm adding the lighter color. I mix it with white and some more yellow to make the right side of the trunk lighter and the other side would be darker, which is why I mix it with a darker brown, sometimes touch it a little bit with some black, and I keep doing it that way for the other trees. So after the cloud dried enough and when I finished the trunk, I went back with the clouds to add some more white to make it stand out from the sky. And then the bottom part, I mixed a little bit of black with the white to make it gray, but also a little bit of blue in it because that's what was in the clouds to be able to add the shadows in it. And then I finally started painting the leaves. And it's the same process as the last painting. I use a square or rounded brush, anything that's big enough to block out the undertones. And some people choose to go from lighter to darker, but I like darker because I can block out different undertones in it and then keep adding the details using lighter colors. And as you can see, there's different shades of green. This part has more greens on the bluish side, so that's why I was dipping it more in blue and mixing the green with it. And then on the top where the light starting to hit on the tree, that's why it got lighter, so I would mix it with some green and yellow to be able to add on it. And right now we're still on the undertone slash the medium detail part, and later on I will switch to my pointed brush to be able to add some of the details with some lighter green. And I know that this process might seem long, but trust me, it's actually a lot of fun. Make sure that you do stand back, take a break, look at it from far, see what is missing and come back to it. It's okay to take breaks in between. Sometimes whenever I paint and I feel like I start hating my painting, I just take a break from it. It gives my eye a little break, and then when I come back, I know exactly what need details, what need more lighting and shading, and compare it to the painting. Usually when I do scenes, I don't put as much details if it's in the background, but since I'm showing you guys how to do it, and if there's any painting that had trees in the foreground, I wanted to show you guys how I would usually do it. And yeah, I'm using a lot of my pointed brush to be able to put some of the details, but you can also do it with your square or rounded brush. Just don't press it all the way in, just use the tip of it and you should be able to get similar details. hope that you guys enjoy watching me paint or painting along with me. Let me know what you thought about the tutorial, and if there's anything that you want to learn how to paint, I'll make sure to do it in the future. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Allez, bye!